All right, we now turn to item 17. It's going quite faster than we thought, right? Okay, here we go. Don't get excited, don't get excited.
Only the next one.
Now, the next item is agenda number 17. Agenda item number 17, which is the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment, simplifying codes for affordable development. And this is a public hearing, a zoning public hearing. I'm going to turn to Attorney Don O'Toole before we hear the staff report so that he can explain to our audience and to our fellow council members exactly what that means and how our rules are affected by whether it is a zoning public hearing or a non-zoning public hearing. Attorney O'Toole.
Very good. Just so we're all clear, I'm going to read the council's rule of procedure on zoning public hearings word for word, so there's no question. Rule 2.6.7B1, zoning. On questions involving amendments to the zoning ordinance, which is what the SCAD amendment is, and on other questions involving the presentation of opposing views, the proponents of such questions shall be heard first. Proponents are limited to a total of 15 minutes, provided that up to 5 minutes of the 15 minutes may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents shall be heard after proponents. Opponents are limited to a total of 15 minutes. Proponents may next be heard in rebuttal, of course, only if they've reserved 5 minutes. The time of proponents or opponents may be extended by a majority vote of council members present. Where several speakers appear as proponents or opponents, the mayor may fix and apportion the permitted time among such speakers unless otherwise ordered by the council.
We will hear from our staff report first.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Bo Dobrinsky, Assistant Director or one of the Assistant Directors for the City County Planning Department. This text amendment, case TC 2200001, simplifying codes for affordable development, also known as SCAD, is a privately initiated text amendment that proposes to amend various provisions of the Unified Development Ordinance in order to incentivize affordable housing and to allow additional flexibility in siting and design, predominantly for infill housing and small-scale commercial opportunities. The applicant team is here to present the specifics of these amendments tonight. The Planning Commission recommended denial on December 13th, 2022 by a vote of 6-6. As you may remember, this item was first scheduled for your consideration on March 20th. It was then continued to May 1st, but was referred back to staff to be rescheduled for consideration after the July break. Over the course of the summer, planning staff hosted a series of meetings between the applicant team and representatives from the Interneighborhood Council, INC. As a result of those meetings, the applicant team made 6 changes to their proposal, and this is detailed in your staff report. On August 21st, this item was again before you, but was continued to today at the applicant's request to allow for additional engagement. The applicants met with your appointed task force 3 times in late October, and as a result, made 1 change to their proposal by increasing the affordable rental term in the PATH program from 5 to 15 years. In addition to the staff report, your agenda materials contain an updated staff analysis, which you had seen previously. This is labeled Attachment M. That is organized with ordinance provisions grouped by topic in order to facilitate consideration of the proposed changes. This item has tentatively been scheduled for consideration by the Board of County Commissioners on December 11th. 2 motions will be required for this item. 1 to approve an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, and the second to approve the corresponding consistency statement. Staff and the applicant team are both available for questions if you have them.
You have heard the report from staff, and I'm now going to declare this public hearing open. First, are there any questions for staff from the members of the council? Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Quick question. So in attachment M in our packet, which is the detailed analysis that you mentioned by the staff, There are a couple of spaces where the staff say that they recommend the change, but also recommend evaluating the effectiveness and impacts of the change as part of the UDO rewrite. I don't understand whether you're recommending that we implement that change now and then evaluate it later, or that we save that change and implement and evaluate it later as part of the UDO rewrite.
Great question, Councilmember Johnson. So where we responded to a particular provision in that manner, the idea honestly was the provision is something that we support in theory and in terms of, you know, the intended outcome, most likely. But as a part of the UDO rewrite, we would potentially do things differently, word it differently, and there would be more research. And so that was sort of just how we addressed proposals that we were generally in favor of, but is not necessarily the exact language that we would use.
Okay, so that's a recommendation to push that to the UDO rewrite, though you expect that something along those lines would be considered favorably by the planning department as part of UDO.
That is correct. Now this is prior to, so that may change while we conduct that analysis and the UDO is drafted, but.
Great, thank you.
Before we get started with our speakers, I do have two speakers. Dr. Michelle Laws, are you speaking in opposition or for, as a proponent or opponent on this matter? Okay. And Angel Dozier, are you speaking in opposition or as a proponent or opponent of this matter? All right. Now, as you heard from the rules, the order of business, as we've been told tonight, is supposed to be to allow each side 15 minutes, and then other than by a vote of council, is it extended? I will tell you that I hope that we will have a vote preliminarily before we get started, because we have 13 persons who have signed up to speak as proponents, and you have 32 signed up as opponents. So if you do the math, you're going to be way over 15 minutes. Even if we'll have to cut it down by a lot of people. So I would like for us to go ahead and see if we can vote to extend the time for each side to have an equal amount of time, and we will start with. It'll be 32 times 3.
So move.
Wait a minute. And then you'll have let's get the math right. So you have 32 times 3 minutes for the opponents, and then that time would then be also allocated to our proponents, with them starting off. Okay, and we're gonna at this point, if you have not signed up to speak, either by card or by on the internet, we will now close it because we're at 32 and I need to be able to get the timing right. So for our opponents, they will have a total of 96 minutes. And
It's 33, it's 99.
99 minutes total.
Yeah.
So that will be divided up as you see fit amongst the 13 proponents, who would then have some time for rebuttal. We'll do the best we can in keeping track of time. If you have not signed up, it is about too late for that now. Getting ready to be, okay? So, okay. Folks have requested that I keep the 3-minute time limit, so this is the only time that they're gonna be able to hear it. I'm sure everybody won't take 3 minutes, but because of what happened last time, I do feel inclined that everybody that wants to speak, we give them the time to speak, especially since we're starting so early with it. You know, it's not like we're starting this matter at 9 o'clock. We're at 7:45. Okay, so at this point, I would like to ask for a motion to consider allowing each of our speakers tonight to have the same time, and that time be extended to accommodate both the opponents and proponents' desire to speak to us tonight.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Hosey Harman, seconded by Councilwoman Freeman. All those in favor, if you just raise your left hand. All right. right, and Mayor Pro Tem is getting here now, but it passes, and I'm sure he would have voted to extend the time, so we'll say it passes unanimously. Thank you for coming, Mayor Pro Tem, because I need your help a little bit tonight. All right, so we're going to start off with our proponents. We'll start you off with come on, Don, let's see. Let's see, Mr. Anthony, I think you're the major proponent, so we're going to ask you to come and be heard. This public hearing is open. And how much time can we start you with, Mr. Anthony?
I'm going to be extremely brief. I'll be surprised if I go beyond 2 minutes.
Okay, all right, and then we will call each of the folks who have signed up as proponents. The next after Mr. Anthony would be Ms. Tiffany Elder, followed by Brian Vaughn, followed by Cliff Cradle, and Ryan Hurley, in that order. Mr. Anthony, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, city councilors, public opponents and proponents. 3 months ago, I suggested the community engage in further conversation about the text amendment we're considering tonight. We had what I thought were productive public engagement sessions, made some friends. Tonight, we are here to support the City Council in its effort to complete this action regarding as they see fit. We are prepared to support what the Planning Department and the Council recommends. Well, the Planning Department can confirm that the original text amendment submission nearly 2 years ago has been modified extensively since it first arrived in their office. In short, I will support the recommendations of the councilors in the Planning Department. We do have supporters here, thankfully, who are here to present a summary of why we believe this text amendment is actually good for Durham, and that to wait for the update of the UDO for what could be 2, 3, or more years is not a good thing for the community when there's some things that need to be fixed soon. We're going to talk about how we save energy, how we improve local development practices, how the environment will be improved, how extensive our city civic engagement was, how the text amendment will result in better planning of projects. We'll talk about how housing economics are actually improved because increasing supply does lower rents and purchase prices. A better entitlement process, simplification of applications, and faith-based housing, opportunity creation, historic preservation, equitable development practices, and expanding affordable housing, improving infill development, resulting in better architecture, walkability, reduction in sprawl, better local retail, and generally better health of our community. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill and City Council members. My name is Tiffany Elder. I am a realtor and builder with 20 years of experience in housing citizens in our city. I've also restored quite a few historic homes and structures in our city. And currently, the code's inflexibility forces homeowners to tear down restorable homes in order to be able to build additional housing on the same lot. And no one likes this problem, and these reforms help to correct that. As a person who loves historic homes and an owner of historic property that I would love to be able to leverage to create more housing in our city, but that I hope I don't have to demolish in order to be able to do so. I support reforms that enable citizens like myself to save more of them and to do this. This evening, you have the benefit of having citizens and professionals across several disciplines here, all in real estate development and all asking for support of this reform. This includes folks who believe so strongly in its benefits that despite the fact that they stand to make less money once these reforms are passed because of the red tape that will be cleared up, thereby eliminating the need for these professionals to usher projects through the process, they're still here in support of this. There are a lot of good people doing good things here in Durham in housing, and quite a few of them are in this room, and I hope you will support SCAD and help us to do more. Thank you for your consideration.
Mr. Vaughn, followed by Mr. Cradle, Mr. Hurley, and Mr. Tom Hennessy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Brian Vaughn. I live at 2118 Copeland Way, Durham County, speaking in support of the text amendment. Since 2016, I've been involved in urban design and development issues here in Durham. Today, I work as a landscape designer at a local firm and volunteer my time hosting events and mentoring others in the landscape architecture community. My support for these amendments is as personal as it is professional. While driving for a ride-sharing company to make ends meet during graduate school, I met many folks in my generation and younger who face significant barriers to homeownership. I think often of the conversations that I had with my passengers and their desire to live in a home that they owned with their families. The truth is that the current options are far more limited for my generation than the options that many in this room have enjoyed. It doesn't have to be that way. These text amendments, I believe, are a way to start fixing that. Professionally, I see a tremendous potential for folks with training in land planning to enable a better Durham. Many with my training learn in school about the innumerable benefits of building healthy, walkable communities, only to join the profession and spend their hours doing uninspired yet code-compliant designs for suburban sprawl. The amendments will unlock a renaissance of homegrown urban design here in Durham. This amendment, though, is bigger than setbacks and roof heights and parking requirements. This amendment is about people and the environment that we create together, about the kind of Durham that my passengers attain owning a piece of with their families, and the young designers and builders who materialize it. I want to live in that Durham, and I strongly urge you to vote in favor. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cliff Cradle with Cradle Engineering Company, 204 East Markham Avenue. I am a local surveyor and civil engineer, and we have been serving Durham community for over 100 years now. The first summer I worked in this field was 1972. So I've been working with our ordinance and with our planning department for longer than anybody's been in our planning department. So I've seen quite a lot of changes and look forward to continuing that work in Durham. I'm here tonight to talk about some reforms to our zoning ordinance or UDO with these text amendments. The houses that I help the individuals build and builders build haven't really changed a lot over the years. The methods are a lot the same. The number of lots may have changed, but the amount of red tape, the amount of ordinance, the amount of regulations we have to go through is increasingly large. And this text amendment reduces a lot of those so we can get back to building those houses and helping these citizens figure out where they want to put those houses on that lot, which is what I do. So as a text amendment, what I want to make clear is that as we make revisions to the text amendment, they are positive. There was an amendment, or there was a ordinance that had multiple rear lot lines, and when we were doing an addition to a house, we weren't able to do the addition. Matter of fact, according to that ordinance at that time, the house would have never been able to be built. So we got together, talked to the planning department, and that text amendment was changed. And now there's positive from these text amendments. So This is greatly needed. This will simplify the ordinance so that we can actually work with people and build their houses and make their dreams come true on that aspect. And it will make my life simpler and the people I work with in that it reduces the amount of regulations that we need to go through. So I am a proponent for this. Thank you.
Mr. Hurley, followed by Mr. Hennessy, Mr. Bach, Randall Anu, Steve Toll. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill, City Council members and staff. I'm Ryan Hurley. I'm a Durham citizen and local retail business owner for 15 years here in Durham. I've been an active supporter of our small business community, including helping to create the Small Business Recovery Fund during COVID, and I am a proponent of this text amendment. Durham's local retail sector lags far behind many comparable cities to us, and that's in large part today because we don't have enough small-scale commercial buildings. Access to these spaces and affordability is absolutely critical for our local retailers and restaurateurs. The more of these spaces we have, the lower the rents will be, and the more likely that our local businesses will be able to buy their space. This is more and more critical as the local restaurant and retail model, if you all don't know, is beleaguered. It is in hard times. As we look across our local retail landscape, it is rife with corporate behemoths that it's very hard for local retailers to compete with. So I am a huge proponent of allowing our small-scale local developers to build small-scale commercial buildings, especially because the corporate developers will not do this. They're going to build more and more of the large corporate projects that we see. If we allow SCAD to move forward, our small business economy will flourish, and it will be a match between our local retailers and restaurants and our small local developers. Our local storefront businesses create jobs, train our workforce, and generate essential tax revenue. Just as importantly, they help define our culture and the brand of Durham. They help us stand out as a community. Please pass SCAD. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Hennessy from West Fourth, and together I'm here tonight with my friend Q Cherry. Q works for the Durham VA in the housing department, and I'm here to present to council and tell council I'm very proud to say that part of my business, part of my company, we provide housing for veterans, we provide housing for vouchers recipients, and I'm also here to say that it is becoming increasingly difficult as values rise and rents rise to continue building or offering homes for rent to those who seek housing through the voucher programs, whether it's through the HUD-VAST program, the VA program, or through the Housing Authority. I do believe SCAD is very critical to controlling prices, reducing rents, building supply, and allowing individuals to build properties not just for the high rents, but for the individuals, for all residents, current residents and future residents of Durham. Specifically, I'm extremely excited that ADUs can potentially be duplexes at a larger square foot. So you could potentially see smaller one-bedroom units, not just larger units for larger rents. I'm extremely excited that under 10 and under townhomes can be built without a site plan. As of right now, we don't see many infill townhomes being built because it's too costly, too timely, too expensive, too difficult. And I think that's super exciting to see that infill townhomes are a possibility in the urban tier of Durham. Additionally, flag lots, utilizing a full-size flag lot 20 feet wide to branch off 5 full-size lots, whether they're for single-family houses or duplexes. Right now, you can only just have 1 on a 20-foot pole, but SCAD allows you to have up to 5, an increased supply. So I'm here again to say that I'm a supporter, and I hope that council passes the text amendment. Thank you.
I have Dan Bach, Randall Anu, Steve Toller, Alan Sprunt, Philip Azar, Quorum Housey, Rand Barron, and those are all the cards that I have signed up in person to speak, and we do, I think, have at least one person online. Yes, sir.
Hi, Dan Bach, 205 Albemarle Street. I'm speaking in favor. There's good development and there's bad development. We do too much of the bad kind in here. Outward sprawl, car-oriented sprawl. This change promotes more of the good kind in the walkable and bikeable parts of town. I'm lucky enough to live in one of those parts of town. I like seeing new housing being built near me. I think Durham is really lucky to have developers who want to build this kind of development, the good kind. I don't understand our process. I don't understand why it takes a developer-initiated text amendment before you all will vote on eliminating parking mandates in Durham. Lots of cities, other cities are doing it, but I guess that's what our system is. And so now that it is before you, I hope you vote to pass it. These are mostly small technical changes. It doesn't solve the housing shortage by itself. It's a small step in the right direction. I hope you vote to pass it tonight. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Lanoy, followed by Mr. Toller, Mr. Sprunt, Mr. Azir, Hauser, Barron, and Banjul.
Good evening. I'm Randall Anu. We have a 23-year-old design and build business located in the Durham Central Park neighborhood, and we design and build high-performance homes. All the homes that we build are certified to the National Green Building Standard. I'm also a professor at NC State College of Design, where I teach courses focused on sustainable design and build. The proposed text amendments encourage building well-designed, smaller houses on more compact sites, and that helps us create walkable communities. Shorter distances to the places we go, more walking, less driving. By focusing on compact, walkable infill projects rather than on suburban sprawl, these reforms will help Durham reduce per capita fossil fuel use. I was pleased to advise on the sustainable alternatives and green building certification definitions in the text amendment. If these reforms are voted in, it will be the first instance of green building principles and standards introduced into our UDO. I strongly encourage you to vote yes on these reforms, and I thank you very much for allowing me to speak to fight for a better Durham.
Good evening. My name is Steve Toller, and I reside at 8709 Millhouse Lane. I'm speaking in support of the amendment. As a resident of Durham since 1977, I've led multiple massive community engagement efforts in Durham, including the 2003, 2007 countywide bond referendums, the 2011 education sales tax referendum, and I led the effort to create the Little River Regional Park in northern Durham. None of these had more community engagement than this process. Not one. After a first draft of these amendments was submitted to the Planning Department made 903 revisions. Then after an additional 61 revisions were made as a result of input from public and from the Planning Commission. In the end, at least 29 citizens wrote parts of the amendments, including local architects, builders, carpenters, nonprofit leaders, and planners. The version you're considering tonight is the 43rd version of this amendment. I'm very proud of this community outreach and engagement led by the best local talent in our community. Thank you for your respectful consideration and leadership in passing this tonight. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Thank you.
Mr. Alan Sprite, followed by Mr. Philip Azar.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come up here and express some of our thoughts. My name is Alan Sprite. I live at 1003 Lamont Avenue. I am the President Emeritus of Trinity Design Build. We just celebrated 20 years of doing mostly historic preservation and green building in Durham. I come from a long line of tree huggers, so I'm going to talk just briefly about some of the environmental motivations for passing this amendment. Just as a couple examples, current code encourages us to cut trees down when we don't want to. Current code encourages us to flatten lots, which causes erosion and other issues when it's really not necessary and it does more damage than good. The text amendment, as mentioned before, is something that's likely to reduce urban sprawl and increase higher density building within the Durham kind of urban area. So in kind of just speaking specifically to some of the environmental reasons why I hope that you all vote for yes, those are just a few examples. I think other people have made some pretty strong arguments with respect to how it would make more walkable communities. And I think a lot of the other thoughts people have already mentioned, so I'll just wind it up there. I hope you vote yes. Thank you.
My name is Philip Azar. I live at 917 Monmouth Avenue. Madam Mayor, members of City Council, I hope you pass the amendment. The amendment contains provisions that are clarifying, broadly beneficial, and in some instances, genuinely progressive. The path home ownership provisions are among the most progressive and should be passed without further changes. Durham has a long history of affordability bonuses that were unused for long periods of time. We should not repeat this mistake. Let's pass the path homeownership provisions as they currently stand. We are not currently meeting our homeownership goals outlined when we passed the housing bond. And we are not demonstrating that we can close that gap. Some of that challenge is financial. We reallocated some of the bond funding to more immediate affordable housing needs. The other challenge is that our affordable housing nonprofits have not been able to return to pre-pandemic production levels, let alone hit the incremental levels of production anticipated with the housing bond. Moreover, because our production has dipped, there's a gap that needs to be made up. Let's give local builders a chance. The best that can happen is that they rise to the challenge. The worst that can happen is that our affordable housing homeownership productivity levels remain where they are today. Let's try and boost them. Let's try and do something different. Thank you for your consideration, and I urge you to pass the amendment.
Mr. Housey, followed by Dan Jewell. I'm sorry, Rand Barron and Dan Jewell, in that order.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Topher Thomas. I live at 811 Girard Street, and I am the founder of Quorum Houses. We are a small equitable housing company that focuses on building ADUs and doing other sorts of small incremental development, focused on working to stop or slow down displacement, stop and slow down gentrification, and I am here in support of the SCAD amendments.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot I could say. I'm sorry. It's been a big week for me. But I think about perfect being the enemy of the good. And I had examples I wanted to give, but my words are fading me. But I think doing something is better than doing nothing. And when I think about what SCAD gives us the opportunity to do, it gives us the opportunity to change the status quo. Things have been going in a certain direction, and this allows me specifically, I know, the opportunity to do more creative housing that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. I'm thinking of right now, who's coming to mind is a pastor in a church congregation, and they've wanted to build a small tiny home community behind their church, and currently they are unable to do that. They have good that they want to do that zoning currently prohibits them from doing. And if SCAD passes, they would be able to do it. And not only would they be able to do it, they'd be able to save somewhere around $70,000 in development costs that would translate to $200 a month in savings for the people who live there. And to me, that's worth it. So I'm in support of SCAD, and I hope y'all pass it tonight.
Sir, if I could get you to come and put your name on this card. Thank you, Mr. Barron, and followed by Mr. Jewell. And those will be all the cards that I have for folks who are here in person. Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor-elect, members of council. I am not a real estate professional. Rather than repeat the points that many professionals have made, and I are here to address tonight, I thought I'd say a few words about respect and professionalism. When I read Topher Thomas's op-ed in the Indy this morning, both those qualities shone through. It was so clear that he knows, loves, and respects this city, and that he knows what he is doing. His early experience in building genuinely affordable housing brings a true breath of fresh air to this debate. The debate around SCAD has rarely had an air of either respect or professionalism. So much vitriol, so much screaming past each other, so much lack of good faith. I have been especially disappointed in the disrespect shown to the consummate professionals on city staff, including from some on this dais. City planning staff have analyzed SCAD extremely thoroughly and have identified the majority of provisions as being mostly minor changes to the code that would have a positive effect on density, environmental preservation, and affordability in Durham. In contrast to the often awful discussion elsewhere, staff have been respectful and professional throughout. I fully believe that they have the best interests of the city and its people in mind. As the recent election clearly shows, Durhamites are very ready to move past the vitriol to a future of professionalism and respect. I urge you to pass all provisions recommended by our wonderful city staff tonight and to use your best judgment to tweak, add, and improve. Durham's future is bright. I urge you to choose to enable more density, more growth, more environmental preservation, and to pay more attention to the quiet professionals than to the loudest voices in the room. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm Dan Jewell. I live at 1025 Gloria Avenue in Trinity Park. I'd like to speak about the positive benefits of a better entitlement process. During my 38 years as a landscape architect working on approvals in Durham, we've gone through 4 zoning ordinances just in that time. We're about to work on a 5th, each more complicated than the previous. In the early 90s, I could get a site plan approved in 2 to 3 weeks. Today, that same plan would take 5 to 6 months at least. primarily because of the greatly increased complexity of the rules that we've created, which in turn require the need for much more thorough and longer reviews by your excellent staff. Too many small builders and even non-professional regular citizens now resort to calling me and folks like me needing help finding a way to work through the unnecessary and burdensome barriers of our current code. It's way too complex, way too expensive to interpret and implement, and way too risky for many small local builders and individual citizens to even dare try. Just imagine if you're someone trying to build an accessory dwelling, carve out a small house lot, or perhaps built a few small townhouses on your property. These are well-intentioned folks, not all professional builders, just trying to provide more housing, sometimes for a family member, sometimes to create income for retirement or put a kid through school. These people all need a simplified code. They deserve a simplified code, which is what we are trying to do. The amendments before you this evening will make it easier for small developers and individuals to do really cool things, I think, but they'll definitely be bad for my practice because we get paid a lot to deal with these very complicated codes. However, these amendments are needed to simplify our codes for small incremental developers, and that is good for Durham. And that's why I'm in support of this amendment and hope that you will be as well. Thank you for your time.
I believe those are all the cards that I have for our proponents, and we do have, I believe, one person on the internet, Mr. Bob Chapman. Mr. Chapman, if you're there, you may speak. Mr. Chapman? Do you see him on the thing? Can y'all see if you see him up there? Warren, can you see if you see him up there?
Yes, ma'am. His microphone appears. Madam Clerk, can you see him?
I see him. I've asked him to unmute. I've allowed him to speak.
Mr. Chapman, if you can unmute for me.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Chapman. I live at 2525 Lanier Place in Durham. Since the 1960s, we've gone from a 16-page zoning code to over 2,000 pages of development regulations today. Many of those new regulations make it more difficult to build affordable housing, and they reinforce economic rather than racial segregation. The recently adopted Expanded Housing Choices text amendments, which were carefully informed by a practitioners panel of dedicated small local developers, began the process of change. The text amendments you're considering today are one more step toward empowering local, small-scale, incremental developers, builders, and citizens committed to housing equity and affordability. Thank you. I hope you'll vote to approve the text amendments.
All right. I think that was our last speaker and proponents for this matter, and we have maybe about 35 total minutes that they used. As I indicated earlier, we have about 32 speakers who are speaking in opposition that will be given 3 minutes apiece. So once they finish, we will deduct the total from the proponents, from the total of the opponents, and that is the time that you will have in rebuttal for the proponents. So we will begin now with our opponents, and I will call 5 names: Stephen Neal, Joseph Fleming, Herman Sperling, Jeremy Bergman, and Seth Hurley will be our first 5 speakers. You will have 3 minutes apiece. Now, we're going to hold you to that 3 minutes because it's a lot of people, so we're going to hold you to that 3 minutes. If you need less, we appreciate it, but please do not go over. I will let you know once you hit that mark. Thank you.
I'll go way under 3. Stephen Nill, Durham resident with Leesville Road Coalition. The coalition urges City Council to vote no on SCAD. This far-reaching endeavor intends to take away the power and control that the council and its team have over the future of our city. Durham is a business. Businesses don't allow their clients or vendors, depending on your point of view, to tell them how to run their business. Yet this is precisely what Jim Anthony's team is doing. We ask that City Council take back control of the process and entertain the elements of SCAD that will be good for Durham, and there are some. We're not opposed to all of this, as part of the next UDO right. Lowering developers' costs is no guarantee that housing will become more affordable. In fact, nothing in SCAD really estimates the savings that would be passed through to consumers from the affordability being provided to the developers or what they're asking for. Right now, Durham's average home price is $421,000. It's gone up 6.6% in the last month, while total homes for sale are down 26%. So the concept here that, there's been assumptions that made once we have enough built that housing prices will come down. Unfortunately, developers can sit on land even after building is approved if they don't see enough profit to finish the job. And this has happened in many overbuilt areas. And I would ask all of you to look at the DataWorks data to show where Durham sits right now in how many homes we have and how many homes we need. Because I think you're under some different opinions than what DataWorks has actually done the work to look at. I was going to talk about public-private partnerships, because I know this is a subject that our incoming mayor is very keen on, but I'm going to kind of leave that alone. I think this is one of those public-private partnerships that may help, us get more public-private partnerships. If you pass this, the sweetheart deal that Jim Anthony's getting is going to be something that's going to be very attractive to other corporations. Thank you very much.
Mr. Fleming, I have two cards for you. Would that be correct?
Joseph Fleming?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I did it on Friday, then I did it tonight.
Okay, all right.
I want to make sure I got heard.
All right, Mr. Fleming, you're about to be heard right now. Followed by Mr. Sperling, Mr. Jeremy Bergman, and Mr. Seth Hurley. You're on, sir.
Okay. My name is Joseph Fleming. I live at 2104 Cedar Grove Drive. I'm a complete Durhamite all my life. Moving on. I am opposed to SCAD for many reasons. And I know that we are going to have many escalation here, but point of matter is, no, SCAD has not been profitable in my viewpoint. A couple things I want to address. If SCAD is approved, it will have a tremendous negative impact on the city's future housing landscape, changing the character of our traditional neighborhoods by increasing taxes. Also, creating a drainage, water runoff, and deforestation. SCAD amendment will create more density that will not be evenly distributed between the city and the county. Working class communities, rural communities, traditional African American community neighborhoods where the land is much historically cheaper, they will be pressured to have more dwellings built in their community. More than anything else, Durham has seen an increase of their housing prices about 6.3%, and that will continue. More than anything else, Durham has a background, or at least a history, of a place in which people can come and live. But with the continued escalation of private entities coming to Durham, making them many minority people move from their community, things have changed. Taken from the state of the South, events in the 2022 minority neighborhoods witnessed a displacement of their people from 10% to 37%. And the renting process had increased 35% since 2017. SCAD amendment claims it will build more affordable homes. That is not the case. That is not true. Our nonprofit organizations have been instrumental of being the main element to build the houses. What I'm talking about, Habitat for Humanity, they have been the main element. Last year, Habitat for Humanity built 17 homes. of the price range of $170,000. That is quite significant, but the point of the matter is the organization, I leave the homeowners organization, not homeowners, but the organization that builds private entities, they are supposed to be involved in this process. But the state does not hold them to that account because it's not constitutional to hold them to that account. Certain things that can make prices, and the question not prices, make things escalate for more nonprofit homes could be the aspect of having, progressive taxes, could be the process of having also rent control, and also a wage process, better wage process. All that could happen, but it's unconstitutional in North Carolina. Getting to our rural neighbors. Our rural neighbors
Mr. Fleming, your 3 months. Mr. Fleming, if I could ask you to finish your sentence, and then, sir, your time will be up. I'm holding everybody to 3 minutes tonight.
Okay, let me finish my sentence. Our rural neighbors have been hurt tremendously pertaining to damage to their homes, their wells, dust buildup, carcinogen. All those particular things have hurt our neighbors because of no one not holding our developers accountable for the things that they do.
Thank you, sir.
We must hold people accountable for the action which they're doing. I'll oppose SCAD.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sperling.
Hi there. I'm Herman Sperling, 2628 Bloomsbury Manor Drive in Durham. Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Attorney O'Toole, Deputy Manager Ferguson, and everyone else on the City Council. I'm not going to present myself as with expertise in this specific area. I don't have it. I don't think any of us have that. I can tell you in my investment portfolio, commercial REITs are in the toilet. I can tell you that there's a lot of vacancies in retail business, and I can tell you that the internet is growing. So we have to be a little careful about when we talk about availability of housing, that we aren't taking supermarkets that are closing down, which might be turned into mini shopping centers, might be turned into pharmacies, might be turned into things that will serve the community. I'm not expert in that. What I am expert in is in confidence in government. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. Most of us have heard stories about the alleged improprieties in our Supreme Court, the appearance of impropriety. One of our colleagues suffered the indignation of being charged with crimes she didn't commit. 4 of you ignored the opportunity to celebrate that announcement with her. One of you tweeted out at the first of these meetings a note that many interpreted as being the keeping of an enemies list. One of you was asked to recuse herself because of the appearance of impropriety and that there was a family benefit in this amendment being passed. Tonight's vote is not just about a SCAD amendment. It's about confidence in government. I want to be proud of my city government. I want my kids to be proud of our city government, our county government, and our federal government. Tonight, you are seeing in a microcosm 3-to-1 of your constituents saying, please don't do this. 3-1. And most of those that are saying, please do it, have a financial interest in you passing it. As an elected official, I think you have a responsibility beyond SCAD. Please vote for our democracy, a government for and by the people. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bergman. Followed by Mr. Hurley. I'm sorry.
My name is Jeremy Berger, and I live at 112 East Piedmont in Southside. I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Fleming, if you allow.
I do not believe that we do that.
All right.
At this point.
All right. I live in the highly gentrified Southside. I'm just a citizen. I came here. I threw some word grenades, in the process. So I apologize for shrapnel. I want to read this. It's from Habitat for Humanity. It says, "We are dedicated to honoring Durham's neighborhoods, and their unique diversity and culture. We seek to preserve long-term affordability as it relates to the promotion of generational wealth. We are committed to being a responsible, affordable housing builder and lender in Durham, working in partnership with other affordable housing developers, community members, the city and county of Durham, and other advocates. We cannot succumb to pressure from donors, volunteers, and our former employees to support agendas that do not reflect our mission and commitments to the community at large in exchange for donations, services, or items of value. And at the end, the Board of Directors of Habitat for Humanity of Durham does not support SCAD as it's currently written, will not apologize for actions related to SCAD, and will not reverse decisions made in March and April 2023 regarding SCAD. I didn't really want to come here, except a few months ago I found out this guy, Brother Ray, got my house, you feel me? And I know he wouldn't have liked this. I didn't even know him, and so I felt compelled to come here and say that. And I also didn't want to come here and then someone talking about low-income veterans unions, and I live in a low-income veteran union. If I knew, and I ain't trying to throw shade, man, but if I knew you're going to bring a brother from the VA. Man, I had a sign that said Veterans Against SCAD. I had a thing that said Veterans Against SCAD. I was going to go down to VA today. I might go tomorrow, man. I might go tomorrow. And we need your help, man. I took my son to the meeting. I watched him online. I took my son to the last meeting, and some of my sisters in the crowd said, liar. They said, who's a liar? I said, Bob Chapman. And I tried to explain it away, but he was lying. The conversation, he lives in the West End. The conversation to my 8-year-old son, in less than 5 minutes, went to Dr. King and Emmett Till. I shh you not. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, man. This is serious. When enough people are saying stop, man, you just got to stop, man, and work with the people.
Thank you all for having me. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Seth Hurley. I am a high school senior who goes to the Durham School of the Arts. I was born in Durham and have lived my life in the Duke Park neighborhood, and I'm here as a member of the Triangle chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. We have some serious concerns about how much damage SCAD could cause to Durham and to its residents, and after the recent election in which we, the citizens of Durham, elected our first candidate backed by the Triangle chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, it is clear what the people want. We do not want more million-dollar single-family homes. We do not want gentrification, which targets and destroys our most vulnerable communities. We want real, affordable housing. SCAD would reduce the required affordable housing period from 30 to 5 to 15 years for rental and first sale for sale units. Again, 30 to 5 to 15. This is not what we, the people, mean when we say affordable. SCAD allows developers to lower the quality of affordable housing beyond what it currently is, forcing the city's workers, the backbone of our economy, to live in slums and modern-day ghettos. This is not what we, the people, mean when we say affordable. As I'm sure you know, Jim Anthony is the figurehead of SCAD. When speaking to Inc., he said that gentrification is necessary to erase the blight. The blight he is speaking of is people struggling to get by, working 3 jobs and a night shift, trying to keep food on the table while still having a roof to sleep under. If you vote in favor of SCAD, you are voting for racism and you are voting for gentrification. If you vote for SCAD, you have to live with the fact that you sided with a notorious right-wing capitalist in destroying our communities, which need the most protection in an effort to line the pockets of developers. Affordability is very important, but SCAD is not the way to do it. Thank you for your time.
We have now 5 more names: Donna Frederick, Jackie Wagstaff, Pamela Andrews, Ajax Woolley, and James Chavis. We have 3 minutes apiece.
Good evening, and I'm Donna Frederick, and I live in Bragtown, Durham. I'm coming here just at the tail end of what SCAD will not. I was on the task force, and one of the things I heard was that the path part of the SCAD was going to be thrown out. Then I see it's changed now from 5 to 15. I mean, we were sitting in the room, so somewhere it changed. But anyway, so SCAD will not make a meaningful contribution to affordable housing. We've heard that. PATH is not really one of the contributions in the SCAD development. The SCAD proponents worked with the planning staff for nearly a year, before the public even had known what was coming forward to them.
If you back away, we will hear you.
SCAD's proponents are by large developers, landlords, and real estate investors. And I will say it's not for the people who are small developers that are trying to do the good for Durham. That is not what's going to happen. It's going to open the whirlwind for other people to come in and do what you've undone. SCAD, their interests in homes and lives have been overmatched. They are alienated by the process. We are last to learn and last to be consulted. The main problem with SCAD was that the public was last to know about what was coming forth. The imbalance of access and time and resources is anti-democratic. This is no way for the city to run its progressive business. I know we can do better than that. Thank you all for coming tonight and giving up your time, and for you also to please not approve SCAD. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm not giving my address because I know somebody got a hit list and I'm probably on it. So I'm going to stay off of it tonight. Let me say one thing about...
State your name first, though. State your name.
Do I have to do that? Because I'm on the hit list now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Apple
ma'am.
and Wagstaff. And I live in Durham. Yeah, I live in Durham. Simplified code for affordable development. Let me say that again. Simplified code for affordable development, not affordable housing. So this was never designed for, I don't think Ms. Anthony just woke up in Raleigh one morning and said, oh, I want to go to Durham and I want to help some poor people find some housing. I don't think that happened. I think Mr. Anthony spent a lot of time thinking about this gentrification rule. And I think he knows where the money lies. I think he has some people up here because it was said early in the game that they have 4 votes. They have 4 votes. We know that. But the unfortunate part about it is when you look around this room tonight, how many people was it that spoke for this project? All had a vested interest. I didn't see but one citizen. Where you at, Possum? One citizen. And his vested interest is called the PAs, those people. So there was really nobody up here speaking on behalf of the citizenship. But when you look out in this audience now to the opponents, these are citizens. We're not experts at this, but we are experts at knowing what our community needs and wants. I cannot take one more day riding down Fayetteville Street, watching a female sleep on the sidewalk, undress at least twice a day, and some other things, and then drive up the block and watch more of this going on, and we got this guy comes in here and say, he's gonna help us with that. He's gonna build some affordable housing. It's not gonna happen. At $450,000 a pop, I don't know who's it affordable to, but I know it's not affordable to the people that are suffering the most. And as the mayor said when she first got elected, the people closest to the pain are not the people that SCAD is for. So I urge you to not support this tonight and listen to the people.
Good evening. My name is Pamela Andrews, Wake Forest Highway. First, I want to sincerely say to Mayor O'Neill how much I appreciate your service. To Monique Hosley-Hyman, I thank you. And to Ms. Johnson, I thank you guys for your service to our town. So what I want to say from a dear friend of mine who was on the task force, She sent out some highlights, and this is what she said to us. She said, although they market SCAD as primarily allowing infill development within the city limits, out of 132 SCAD provisions, 122 new provisions expressly apply to city and county. When this was pointed out at one of the task force meetings, Mr. Anthony's response that HOAs would limit dense development in the county. That's not true. Everyone in the county does not live in a community with an HOA, for one. If SCAD is intended to be limited to infill within the city limits, it would say that, but it definitely does not say that. SCAD will reduce the already small transparency of development decisions to non-existent. Under SCAD, almost all development applications will be by right and granted administratively behind the closed doors of the planning department. There will be no notice to the community and no public hearings. Suddenly, the bulldozers would show up on the land next to you, and that's it. At most, there might be a neighborhood meeting with the developer at which neighbors have absolutely no power, which is often the case. SCAD doesn't provide any safeguards to neighbors against blasting and other damages, which Southeast Durham has incurred every single week. I got more calls this week, more emails this week saying, please come, Pam, they're in my backyard blasting. It will not reduce the buffer. The buffer requirements would be reduced around some residential projects. Small details like this have huge impacts to residential homes. Sometimes we don't see these impacts until the changes are already done. We've seen buffer reductions around our creeks, which are already impaired, along with variances that are given to these buffers. Sound Rivers continues to monitor the devastation to Lick Creek and other creeks. Just ask the residents of Southeast Durham with blasting in their property lines. On their property lines, they're blasted down 25 to 30 feet. Our mayor's been there, Dr. Hyman's been there, Ms. Freeman's been there, 25, I'm sorry, Mr. Middleton came out, 25 to 30 feet on a property line. Ask them how much buffers are important. Please do not pass SCAD.
You sure? Yeah. I might want to follow you, actually. Good evening, Council. Mayor O'Neill, thank you for your vital leadership over the past 2 years. My comments are focused on an exchange I witnessed at the SCAD task force meetings.
If you would just state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Ajax Woolley, 408 Bon Air Avenue. SCAD task force meetings on the 25th and 27th of October, which included several friends and colleagues I hold in high regard, some of whom spoke here this evening, on both sides of the issue. A major policy element in SCAD, the PATH program, P-A-T-H program, section 6.6.4, is included in the proposal before you tonight. The trouble is that at the October 25th SCAD task force meeting, I heard the applicant verbally state an opinion that this program should be eliminated from the proposal. These meetings are online. You can see them on YouTube if you want to check. The timestamp is around 1 hour, 16 minutes. Mr. Anthony, the applicant, said, quote, I will say, as the proponent, the PATH piece of the SCAD project, I'm under no illusion that we're going to pass SCAD as it's written. No one in our camp is expecting that to happen, nor are we pushing for that to happen. We actually are here to have a dialogue about what ought to be changed. So, PATH is one of those areas within the document where it may be simpler to set it aside, end quote. And then Councilmember Freeman called for anyone to voice their objections, and I heard a consensus that the PATH program could be set aside. And then one opponent, Ms. Joyner, wisely asked, quote, can we clarify what set aside means, end quote? And the applicant, Mr. Anthony, answered, quote, set aside means it gets eliminated, end quote. Looking at the staff memo and attachment B, we see that the PATH program is still included in the proposal. And thankfully, our planning staff are extremely diligent, thorough, and well-prepared. As the memo states, the task force met with the applicant, and the proposed draft reflects the applicant's effort to address concerns raised in those meetings. So the applicant's effort on this issue failed the task of moving his own spoken words on October 25th to the written words for you to vote on tonight. I'm here to alert you to this fact. The city wants to provide incentives of value to developers of affordable housing, and we can do better than this. Right now at DCLT and Durham Habitat, we have brilliant executive leadership with proven track records who can guide us instead. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is James Chavez, and I'm a longtime resident of Durham. I, too, must commend our mayor on the last month of those meetings we had. They was excellent because we started doing something. We started accomplishing something on both sides. And that's why I'm here tonight to ask. Do not pass SCAD until that committee that was formed and anyone else that wants to come be allowed to continue what we started. Because that meeting, as two of them presided, with the mayor being up there, helping direct it correctly, did not show favoritism on either side, that we needed that. A neutral person standing in the middle, making sure both sides had an opportunity to speak and be heard and get their points across. We accomplished something. But if you all vote for SCAD tonight, y'all have made everyone that was in those meetings a disservice to the citizens of Durham. Please, I'm asking every last one of you all, take in consideration, because those that came, we volunteer our time and our energy. No one said anybody there was in perfect shape to make anything, but you heard from everybody in there that wanted to be heard. And conclusion at the end came down because our mayor made sure before those meetings was closed what would be our next step. And that's what we need to continue. And I asked her, and I'm asking her personally here, will she, if y'all vote this down, continue to be the person to be in charge and help us carry it out so that everybody, not one of us, the pro and the unpro, can sit down at the table and have a meal of determined to make this better for the city of Durham.
Next 5 speakers, Mr. Tom Miller, Regina Mays. There's a person that lives on Elmira Avenue with last 4 digits, phone number 8394. I just need for you to put your name in. You will be that person. Next after Ms. Mays, Larissa Orinskovich, Brian Calloway, in that order. Mr. Miller.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Tom Miller. I live at 1110 Virginia Avenue. What can I say about a 60-page set of complex legal changes to the UDO in 3 minutes that would materially add to your understanding of the issues it presents? And the answer to that is very little. And this is yet another problem, part of the problem that arises when a profit-making industry is allowed to propose sweeping changes to rules that affect the lives of everybody in Durham. A public hearing is an important and necessary component of due process, the legal idea of fairness and public participation. But to be meaningful, the process has to be fashioned to fit the size and nature of the issue. With something as large as SCAD, how can any speaker address it meaningfully in so small amount of time? The proponents of SCAD win by asking for something so big that the public cannot address it in this forum. We're not talking about any of the minuscule parts of SCAD. We're speaking high and at 30,000 feet. And we're not accomplishing anything. They're really important details that we need to talk about, and we just can't do it in this forum. What does SCAD do? In a nutshell, it increases developer opportunities at the expense of the quality of life of ordinary people. And for the vast majority of people in Durham, their interest in planning and zoning is the protection of their homes. Their investment is not just the rent they pay or the value of their homes. It is the fact that they want a good place for their lives to happen, where their kids grow up and where they grow old. To the extent that our rules protect this interest, the rules are a success. When we tear those protections down, we fail the people. SCAD will strip away buffer requirements that protect people's homes. SCAD will accelerate gentrification and displacement by targeting naturally occurring affordable housing in low-wealth neighborhoods. SCAD will strip away infill rules designed to make new development compatible with Durham's existing neighborhoods. SCAD will allow new small houses and ADUs incentivized by the EHC changes to become much larger and more profitable, defeating their contribution to affordability. SCAD will allow residential properties to be substantially paved over, shrinking yard areas and eliminating paving limits. SCAD will allow as many as 4 or 5 houses on flag lots to share a single one-lane driveway. SCAD will increase by right development in multiple ways, excluding public participation in planning decision-making. An example is allowing residential development in commercial and industrial zones, especially in the area of town near Andrew Avenue, a place that should be rezoned, not deregulated.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. If you will finish your statement.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Please
you.
vote against SCAD.
Ms. Mays?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and all representing council members. My name is Regina Mays. I'm a 22-year resident of Durham. And I want to start out in a real quick way of saying, as the work began highlighted in March of 2019 with the Department of International Development and other supporting agencies for those with disabilities to develop a paper on disability inclusive infrastructure for low-income residents. It is projected by 2050 that 6.5 billion will be urban dwellers and 15% will have at least one disability. They set out to name key enablers for infrastructure as part of a journey to leave no one behind. As I currently serve as the chair for the Consumer Family Advocate Committee for Durham Chapter for Alliance Health, we are tasked this fiscal year to advocate and educate all stakeholders for housing, transportation, and crisis intervention for persons with disabilities. As I have taken part of multiple conversations, listening sessions, and research about SCAD, I revisited the current and currently changing of what is known as Section 811, which is the detailed policy that's for supportive housing for persons with disabilities. It does not align with the current SCAD proposed. I also think and look at the minutes from the NPO meetings where there is a lack of detail for the realistic barriers for those disabled riders. So I challenge you as a council to not only think about the buildings and structures, but all that is included in infrastructure for people with persons with disabilities. I recently read an article that a Chicago resident stated, that property such as LIHTC, leaves no room for exploitation for very low income and elderly disabled people. Our only option is to use the Housing Authority that currently has a 25-year waiting list. So a lot of times in meetings hear examples of other cities. In Chicago, I see named quite a bit. And if you follow those types of cities, you're going to get those type of results. A 25-year waiting list for their housing. So I thank you for listening. I hope you consider it is more than about buildings and structures.
Mr. Walter Jackson, Ms. Larissa Arinskovich, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, and Mr. Brian Calloway, and that'll be the last three that we will take before we take our 9 o'clock break. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of City Council. My name is Walter Jackson. I'm chair of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, and I would like to add my voice to those of others, thanking you, Mayor O'Neill, Council Member Johnson, Council Member Hulsey Hyman, for your service. I have worked in the public arena, and I know that it is a tremendous task that you take on, and I appreciate your service to the community. I am here this evening on behalf of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People to renew our request that was made to you in July of this year to not consider SCAD before a new council is seated. My question to you is a simple one. What's the rush? What will happen if SCAD is not passed or acted on tonight? What will happen if it's not acted on until March of next year or July of next year or December of next year? That's the question I want to know the answer to, because it seems to me very obvious that the majority of our citizens, as you're hearing tonight, are not supporting this measure. I have heard some interesting arguments in favor of SCAD tonight, that if they are correct and true and accurate, may be reason to pass it. But the problem is, in my view, the community has not been convinced of the merits of this proposal. I think there are times when it is proper, appropriate, and acceptable for a governmental entity to act against the wishes of its citizens. I submit to you that tonight is not one of those occasions. I ask you to not act on SCAD this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill and respected members of the City Council. My name is Larissa Arinskovich. I have been a resident of Durham for 37 years. And I was alerted to the whole SCAD issue maybe 6 months ago by my neighborhood listserv. And I forgot to say where I live, 711 Arnett, Moorhead Hill neighborhood, and have been following it fairly closely. The thing that boggled my mind, of course, was the length of the document. I could not even imagine understanding it without the help of getting people who studied it in depth, like Mr. Tom Miller and Benita Green, who met and parsed it out and then met again with a task force in October. To me, you have to look at the motive. It's called the Simplified Code for Affordable Development. As one speaker said before, it says development, not affordable housing. Very, very important point. I have written to the City Council twice about SCAD, and I'm going to quote you a proverb that I included in my letter. Though the forest was shrinking, the trees kept voting for the axe. For the axe was clever and had convinced the trees that because his handle was made of wood, he was one of them. Who is Mr. Anthony? I respect the gentleman. He's a developer, hardworking businessman. He's based in Raleigh. I read in The Independent, which was my first introduction to this whole issue, and pardon if I'm out of turn, that he has contributed to the likes of Madison Cawthorn and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, would I say he is one of us? No. I think Durham deserves better, and I have to agree with Mr. Jackson. There were a lot of interesting arguments that were made for the SCAD thing. Of course I want walkability. Of course I want infill development. Of course I want to support local businesses. Of course I want affordable housing. All of these are important. But don't jump into this. If there are elements of SCAD that now I hear that the unified, UDO is going to be revised, incorporate them. Cherry pick what you want. You don't have to swallow this lock, stock, and barrel. You don't. You can take your time. And the fact that there were 3 times as many people coming here to speak against SCAD should give you some pause for thought, because all the other people who spoke for it had some vested interest. And I just caution that take your time, consider the people, and decide what is fitting for our city and what is not. Thank you very much.
Mr. Callaway, you have 3 minutes, and you'll be the last speaker before we take a 10-minute recess.
All right, thank you. My name is Brian Callaway at 307 Gresham Avenue in the heart of Northgate Park. The proponents that we've heard are clever. That's definitely true. They're also professionals. They're marketers. They raised, I believe, over $100,000, according to some of their websites, to push this agenda tonight to you, and for the last, year and a half. And, they're polished. They brought forward their well-intentioned folks that they have on their team, but, the speculative economics of their profession don't mean that intentions follow through. Like, the code that is in place is going to be manipulated and pushed to the brink by any developer that wants to come to town. I will say too that the claims and concerns from the community about the fears of gentrification, I think, are real, because the proponents are themselves the gentry. They are the land barons of this community. And they are the ones who just wrote this code to eliminate any guardrails that might be in place. And greed must have guardrails. Councilmember Williams, you often challenge us. Why are folks coming here and just saying, no, 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 bring solutions? So 2 solutions that we can do is, just as was just said, incorporate this in the broader rewrite of the UDO. That's an easy one. But number 2, implement small area planning. Let neighborhoods decide how to densify themselves, what kind of development they want in place. But lastly, too, Councilmember Johnson, this being your last one, I wanted to make sure to address you as well on the way out. The upside down, I know, is inspired by Durham, and it is remarkable to me how, being a stated anti-capitalist, you so wholly have embraced these last 4 years the capitalists in the community. Yeah, I've seen you do it with Berkshire Hathaway in Southeast Durham. We've completely transformed what that entire community looks like. I've seen you lock arms with Warren Buffett himself. And so, it is interesting. This is your last vote publicly to take, and you'd be the deciding vote. So I am hopeful that you maybe surprise us tonight. So thank you.
At this time, I'm going to give the lineup for the next 5 speakers when we come back in from recess. That will be Raphael Moses Mazier, Mimi Kessler, Katie Ross, Robin Barefoot, and Mary Malini. And I also have one card with the phone number on it with the last 4 digits, 9929. During the recess, if you could come and put your name on this card. We will come back at 9:50. Yep. Take about 11 minutes.